Hello and thank you for joining us on Sideline Story, your destination for sports news, analysis and discussions. I'm Brandon Yates and today we will be discussing the performances of some English Premier League teams at the early stages of the season. We'll also talk about the cooperation deal between the Premier League and Chinese village football, some of the past and present Asian talents in the league, as well as some up-and-coming Chinese footballers to keep an eye on. To help me get through these topics, I'm joined by two fantastic panelists, Yang Guang and Fu Yu. And Yang Guang, at this early stage of the Premier League season, we've already seen some surprise and some excellent performances from some Premier League teams. But from your side, which teams have impressed you the most at this early stage of the season?
Well, it must be Tottenham.
Yes.
And everyone was expecting them to have a slow start.
Myself included.
Or even collapse after losing Harry Kane, the core player of their playing style. Everyone was like, they would definitely plunge from the table, which they might still do in the future as the season progresses. But as things stand, I think they deserve to be called the biggest surprise package of the Premier League season so far.
What do you think has led to this early success? I mean, like you've already mentioned, it is very early days and things could change as the season progresses. But at this point in time, what do you think they're getting right?
I think the winning formula from them is mainly from attacking perspective. I mean, Son Heung-min has switched to his scoring mode again, and Richarlison has become more of a threat now.
He seems to have more impact on their play.
He used to be marked by Spurs fans as one of the worst signings by Tottenham.
Right.
I actually saw a bit of the game between Tottenham and Manchester United.
Oh no. So did I, unfortunately.
That was a 50-50 game, fairly to say. But I mean, it's not dominated wholly by Tottenham. United had their chances, though it's a 2-0 win for Tottenham. I noticed some really big changes and differences about these Spurs squads. There are a lot of switches of positions between players when they attack. A lot of forward running, a lot of vertical passes to create chances. These really made some United players confused when they defend.
So there seems to be a lot of versatility in their attacking lineup amongst those attacking players, which is, I think, very difficult for defending teams to deal with.
A lot of credit to their new coach, Postecoglou. And I think it seems like, to me, he added he's from Australia, and it seems like he added some rugby tactics into this Spurs squad.
Potentially,
But he could be the new special one in the Premier League.
He's definitely been known for his attacking style during his time at Celtic in the Scottish Premier League, and it seems like he's brought that to Tottenham in the English Premier League. And I guess a lot of Tottenham fans and just football fans in general were expecting Tottenham to take a back seat and maybe play a little bit more conservatively without Harry Kane. But it seems like they've done the total opposite and they're playing with confidence. James Maddison has come in and he's really unlocked some of their attacking players. And like you said, Son Heung-min has really taken on that responsibility that Harry Kane left in terms of filling that void, ever since he's left for Bayern and is, of course, doing really well at Bayern Munich. So it seems like Tottenham, Harry Kane, no problem.
At this stage, that's the case. I think their coach, Postecoglou, he's doing something like what the previous newcomers of the Premier League, like Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Sarri, Antonio Conte did, which is surprising their opponents with their unique game style. And
I guess the opponents have also been surprised by their confidence, because I think, like I said, I think a lot of opposition teams would have expected Tottenham to go into their shell without Harry Kane.
A good manager always knows how to encourage his players to play to the utmost. And he's doing the right job right now. I don't know how consistent this Spurs squad can be as the season progresses. I mean, a lot of his rivals will study his tactics and look more into their video videos.
I'm also not so sure about Tottenham's depth. It looks like their starting 11 has really got things going, but in terms of if there's one or two injuries or if something goes wrong during the season, that could potentially be something difficult for Tottenham to deal with.
That might bring some issues as the season follows. But right now, I think Tottenham is the team to watch.
I would agree. They've been fantastic to watch. Like you said, they're playing with confidence. They're playing wonderful attacking football, and it's definitely difficult for opposing teams to read what they're going to do, with possession and on the counter attack. So they're definitely a very exciting team to watch at this point in time. I suppose, look, City, Arsenal, all of the traditional, strong Premier League teams have also been performing really well. Has there been anything from City or Arsenal that you weren't really expecting, or were you just expecting them to dominate again this season?
I think City and Arsenal will repost this rivalry from last season.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they have any competitors long term at this point in time. Like we've said, Tottenham are playing really well at this point, but I don't see them challenging City or Arsenal in the longer stages of the season. So I agree with you. I think it could again be a two-horse battle between City and Arsenal. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like every season there's a new team emerging as the top 4 contenders. Last season,
not league contenders, always just top 4 contenders.
Yeah, Arsenal, that last season they challenged City a lot, but it didn't dethrone City.
It was disappointing, right? It was such an exciting battle for so much of the season, and then Arsenal just lost momentum at the end. Do you think that they can potentially get that right this season and keep that momentum throughout the entire season?
I think they have more reinforcement now from the team depth point of view.
Yeah.
They are stronger now.
Right.
And as the season progresses, I think, and they also have some new talents joining, Rice. And,
Declan Rice, a massive signing for Arsenal. I think he's going to be very important in the heart of their midfield.
Even, Kai Havertz, how he depressed some of the Arsenal fans.
But considering the price that was on his head, right?
Yeah, for the depth perspective, I think he would be a help.
I guess where he can help is also, again, we bring it up, versatility. So I think he's a very talented player, but maybe Mikel Arteta is still trying to figure out what to do with him. But in terms of that long season progression that Arsenal will need to keep up with Manchester City, I think he could be a player that helps them at the latter stages of the season. I think he still needs to find a lot of good form. But I guess an experienced player, a talented player, he should boost Arsenal. But then again, man, Manchester City are just looking completely dominant again. And now Julian Alvarez is even stepping up to help Erling Haaland ever since Kevin De Bruyne got injured. So at this point, are you seeing any City weaknesses at all at this point in time? Because from my side of things, I can't see any kinks in that chain.
I agree. They are the #1 contender for the Premier League title.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, Liverpool and Arsenal, they're quite good, but not good enough to match
top 4 contenders.
Match City's pace.
Yeah, I love at the beginning of the season. I mean, it is early stages, but I love how it's already City are going to win, and let's see who makes up the top 4. But for you, speaking about the Premier League season, there are definitely some exciting fixtures to look forward to going into this weekend. Are there any that you'll be keeping your eyes on?
Yeah, one game I'm watching out for this weekend is the game between Tottenham and Sheffield. Similar to the reason why Yang Guang's very impressed with Tottenham so far this season, I just want to see how they're doing and if they can stay consistent without Harry Kane, who left for Bayern Munich, which I'm not complaining as a Bayern Munich fan. He's a very welcome addition at the German team. But in England, the whole system, at Tottenham, the whole system that used to evolve around the old captain may not work anymore. And they have to switch things up, like one of you just said, there's a lot of versatility. James Maddison stepped in, but I wouldn't say he's a complete replacement for Kane.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Maybe from the creativity department and unlocking defenses.
Because each player's unique, and also Son Heung-min stepped up as the new captain, and I've seen chemistry between these two, and from the feedback from Son, he's obviously very happy with Maddison as a new teammate. So the attacking game might be a bit different at Tottenham, and also, like you said, there's a new coach, and I think this could be the start of a new era at Tottenham.
Absolutely.
And also Sheffield as another reason why I'm watching out for this game, because Sheffield, as a newly promoted team, we don't know them that well. And Tottenham may not even know them that well.
To be honest, I can't name one Sheffield United player, so...
Yeah, the season's still long. There's plenty of time to get to know them. But yeah, this weekend, Tottenham and Sheffield, it should be an interesting
Yeah,
one.
I would definitely watch that game as well because I want to figure out what a consistent force this Spurs team can be, or it's just a one-off thing against United.
Yeah. I mean, Fu, you mentioned that Son has taken on the captain's armband. James Maddison has come in and he's unlocked defences and created space for a couple of Tottenham's attacking players. Do you think that Tottenham are dealing with the loss of Harry Kane better than anyone expected? And has it weirdly kind of worked out for them? Because his loss to Bayern Munich seems to have created confidence in other players at Tottenham that maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah, you can say that. To borrow a word from Yang Guang before we started this podcast, I think it's liberated Son. He's free. And also for a lot of the other players, they are playing at their own pace instead of having all their positions and tactics designed around Kane. So yeah, a lot of new changes happening at Tottenham.
It seems like the loss of Kane has created freedom for so many players, and we've always known that Son has been a world-class player, and it seems like he's also taken on that captain's armband responsibility to the point where, yes, he's leading the team in terms of, his words in the change room, I suppose, and taking on that captain's role, but he's also leading by example, which he always has done, but I guess under the shadow of Harry Kane. Now that massive shadow has gone to Bayern, and it seems like Son is going to be the star man for Tottenham going forward. And I think Postecoglou has also brought in some really attacking football and given confidence to Tottenham players that maybe they didn't have before, particularly when they were really struggling last season. So I think things are looking really exciting for Tottenham at this early stage. Things could definitely change as the season progresses, but I think it's a great time to be a Tottenham fan. Yang Guang, any other fixtures to look forward to this weekend?
Yeah, I'm also particularly interested in the fixture between Liverpool and Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yes.
Those two teams offered some really exciting games in past encounters. If the memory serves me well, the Wolves beat the Reds 3-0 in one of their in Premier League encounters last season.
Another attacking team, right?
Yeah. They are a team that is able to trigger massive upsets.
I guess it's because they never really have anything to lose. I've never really known Wolves to struggle in the relegation zone, and they've never really been pushing for a top 6 or a top 4 spot. So I guess they figure like, well, we're a mid-table Premier League team, and when they come up against Premier League giants, they say, to hell with it, let's have a go.
But in the meantime, they can be very slippery against the smaller sides.
True.
So yeah, I think this game should be open as usual. The two teams will play a very exciting game.
It should be interesting to watch because I think the Reds are currently going through a huge transitional period as well. They've lost a couple of their midfield players and they've brought in some very talented players. And it looks like they're also doing quite well at the moment. I wasn't expecting Liverpool to kind of get up and running at the early stages of the season, but they are looking pretty good at this point in time. They've also got some of their injured players from last season that are coming back. And some of those signings that I mentioned, they've come in and they've particularly in midfield, some of those players that they've signed have really gotten going early on, right?
I thought it would take some time for the midfielders to build this chemistry between
like
each other.
McAllister and the guy from Japan, I can't think of his name now.
But it just clicked as good as it looks like.
So it looks like Klopp has made some good signings, particularly in that midfield, and a lot of pundits thought that that's where Liverpool would struggle this season.
He knows what business he needs.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, this game, while I was looking at the weekend fixtures, this game between Liverpool and the Wolves was also one of my... I kind of debated between this one and the one that I picked.
Right.
Yeah, because I think Wolves to Liverpool is what Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga is to Bayern Munich.
Okay.
There's
like a bit of a dark horse team. Whenever they come up against them, they sort of struggle,
kind
right?
Kind of a nemesis team.
Yes, but a surprising one because on paper it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, because there's a huge gap between these two teams, but
on paper.
Yeah,
but on the field it's always a different story.
In terms of the Bundesliga, when it comes to Mönchengladbach, Bayern Munich always struggles, and they sometimes inflict the season's first loss or the biggest loss. I think this might be the case for the Wolves and Liverpool.
Yeah, it should definitely be very exciting to watch. But from myself as a Manchester United fan, of course, I want to watch Manchester United versus Brighton. I say I want to watch because watching United at the moment is very difficult. The defense is a shambles. There's massive gaps in the midfield, and there's the Anthony situation, there's the Jadon Sancho situation. So there's just endless problems at Manchester United at the moment. I'm quite looking forward to see if Amrabat gets some game time and maybe is able to sort out that midfield issue. What we're going to do defensively, I'm not really sure. And Brighton are also one of the surprise teams, I think, at the early stages of the season. So it could be a difficult game for United, but it should be very, very exciting to watch indeed. But staying with the Premier League, Yang Guang, of course, we know that Chinese Village Football has signed a strategic cooperation deal with the English Premier League. Can you tell me a bit more about that deal and how it could potentially benefit both parties?
The Premier League and the Guizhou Village Super League, the so-called Super League, they've agreed to sign a memorandum of understanding on the sideline of the China International Fair of Trading Services. The two sides agreed to explore collaboration in grassroots football.
Okay, so particularly there's a focus on grassroots football, right?
Yeah.
Okay, which is really needed in China, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, for the Premier League, it's the cooperation with the Village Super League will help them target more Chinese fans, especially in Guizhou.
Right.
Football enthusiasm in Guizhou, in that province, is massive.
And also maybe give, access to English Premier League football to Chinese fans that maybe didn't have access to it in the past?
I think they will particularly have these cooperation projects where a lot of exchanges will happen between players, managers, and organisers. So they will learn experiences from each other, how the Village Super League can succeed on the social media platforms. That would be a lesson for the Premier League.
Yeah.
And in turn, I think the Village Super League in Guizhou, they will have chances to go to the UK to learn about their experience in grassroots football development there. I mean, it's a great chance for them to make their village tournament a bigger thing. I mean, the Village Super League has made a splash on Chinese social media, and it has turned into a popular sports festival to attend. Right. But what's next? How to make it consistent? I think there's plenty to learn for the organizers of the Guizhou tournaments.
Absolutely.
From the Premier League.
And I can't think of a better league to learn from, right? Because I think in terms of consistency, reaching out to the fans, professionalism, I think there's a lot that league can learn from the English Premier League. So I think it's a huge opportunity for the Chinese Village Football, right?
Indeed. Actually, a bit more about this discussion. I think it can be a starting point of a learning process for China to take notes from the whole English football league structure.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, the English Premier League is the top tier league, but below it there are dozens of leagues across England, on the county level, on the city level, even on the village level.
Yeah, and they're all really professional, right?
Yeah.
I mean, professional football in England definitely extends beyond the English Premier League.
With massive fan base. Yeah. But and in China, we have this top-tier league design, which is the Chinese Super League, and now we have this...
Which is incredibly popular too. I can't even get tickets to watch the Beijing games.
Yeah, and we also have this Village Super League in Guizhou, which is the bottom or the grassroots level.
But very popular, right?
Yeah, of the pyramid structure, of the Chinese league's structure. But something is missing in the middle.
Oh, I see what you mean. In terms of like, there's a big gap between the top tier and the bottom tier, right? There's no like kind of middle ground, which England does really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I said China should take notes from England experiences. And yes, some developed provinces in China, like Jiangsu, they have organized provincial level games, but the clubs are seldom heard, even for the locals. And some provinces don't even have these kinds of games.
So I guess they need to figure out how to also create exposure for themselves and also connect with the fans on a regular basis, right? To keep that momentum.
Especially build this clear passage for a player from grassroots level.
So important.
To turn to a professional player and then to the top tier. That's how Jamie Vardy became one of the top strikers in England. So I think that should be a starting point, I mean the collaboration between the Premier League and the Village
And
Super
he's a
League.
perfect example of how the English Football League system can also benefit players that fall through the cracks at an early stage.
Exactly.
Because of the system and the structure that they have in place, even if you progress in your career in your later stages, you can still make it to the top tier. And I guess that's something that Chinese village football can learn from the English Premier League and also close that gap between the CSL and the Chinese village football and create, you know, a greater path to that professional leagues like you've mentioned.
Definitely, that's a great conclusion.
Absolutely. And for you, from your side, how do you see this benefiting particularly Chinese village football, and do you think it is a beneficial partnership to have with the English Premier League?
Sure. Actually, at first, I was surprised to learn about this deal because before this, I didn't even think the village Super League called Cunchao in China would have anything to do with one of the best and competitive professional football leagues in the world. So this deal at CIFTIS, at this fair that Yang Guang just mentioned, I only see it as a win-win. Actually, what I really love about the Cunchao is that it's very entry and community level.
Yes.
There's no threshold, there's no limit, and no hierarchy. Basically, anyone can join and anyone can do whatever they want. During this league in China, we've seen people of minority ethnic groups cheering for their teams in their traditional costume.
Very festive.
Yeah, and also kids giving advice and telling the players what they should be doing.
So there's a lot of engagement with the communities, right? And
Yes.
fans have a real say in what happens on the field and off the field, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think this lowers the level, not the level of competitiveness in football, but lowers the threshold of engaging with this sport.
Right.
Participation.
Yeah, the Village Super League now already has a large fan base. The popularity it enjoys is huge. And also the Premier League has professionalism. And I think this is where we say why this deal is so genius. I only see this as a win-win because by these two leagues teaming up, one gets exposure and marketing. Not that the Premier League lacks any, but like you said, this partnership may also get people access to the professional football leagues.
So I guess it can extend the English Premier League's global reach and get them, create deeper ties in China, maybe reach fans that they haven't had before.
Yeah, and maybe the fans will, or these players will even get the chance to play with some of the professional football players. Because from what I've read,
and get coaching from them, that would always be beneficial.
That's part of the deal. It may happen in the future. Also extending beyond football, the business communities between the UK and the Guizhou village also signed deals for partnerships in tourism and other soccer-related projects. So that's another aspect of this partnership benefiting both sides, even beyond the football arena.
Yeah.
And also, I think the Premier League could also be very educational for the Chinese village league, for
Absolutely.
the Cunchao.
On numerous levels, right? Not just what happens on the field, but so much of what happens off the field is also what makes the Premier League successful.
Yes, not only in terms of playing football, like Yang Guang said, there needs to be a football culture, which I've always also complained that it's been lacking in China at the moment. I think, so these two leagues working together will have very exciting outcomes.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a win-win partnership. And I also think the critical element there is also creating a bridge between the professional leagues and the village leagues. And I think that's going to be very important to see a lot more maybe Chinese football talents that kind of don't necessarily make it to the professional leagues at a very early stage. It might give them a clearer path on how to get there. And I think that's going to be fantastic. And what better league to learn from than the Premier League? And also what better country to kind of get, your exposure to than China for the Premier League. So it definitely seems like a win-win situation indeed. But sticking with that Asia and Premier League connection, Yang Guang, we've also seen some incredible Asian talents over the years in the Premier League. And even right now, we've mentioned one or two players. So from your side, who have been your favorite Asian players in the Premier League in the past and even currently?
Yeah, Asian appearances have been on the rise in the English Premier League. I mean, Son Heung-min's success really boosted not only South Koreans fans' confidence, but
all over the continent, right? Yeah.
In Asia, and also a lot of Japanese players as well. Here in China, fans always talk about how good Kaoru Mitoma with Brighton is, and Son Heung-min with Tottenham.
Yeah. I guess those are the two standout Asian players in the Premier League right now, I would say.
Yeah, on one side of the story, yes, these players proved Asian players can play equally good football.
If not better, and thrive. I mean, they're recognized as some of the top talents in Europe.
But on the other side of the story, I mean, there's some mood of being jealous from the Chinese fans' perspective. Yeah, because we don't have a single player playing in the top-tier European league right now.
Okay.
But in the past, I mean, we had some excellent representatives from China playing for English clubs like Fan Zhiyi, Li Weifeng. The most successful one might be Sun Jihai, the only Chinese player inducted into the English National Football Hall of Fame.
Huge achievement.
Yeah, at least that also includes the legends of Alex Ferguson, George Best.
All my boys.
Yeah.
All my favorites.
I still remember two highlighting moments of Sun Jihai in his Manchester City career. One match.
Do we have to go through City highlights, please? Can we move on to the next topic?
Okay, one was against Fulham. Sun Jihai made a world-class goal line clearance.
I love those, right? Like a goal saver.
Yeah,
those are always fantastic.
Because he's a defender.
Yeah. That's always, I love to see that.
As the only defender in front of the goal without the goalkeeper,
brilliant,
facing three of his opponents. That was marvelous.
Yeah, that's superhuman almost.
Yeah, and also a second highlighting moment I can remember from Sun Jihai is he totally locked up Cristiano Ronaldo in a game against United.
Thanks for bringing that up. Although I will let that one slide because Cristiano Ronaldo getting locked up does not happen very often. So if it did have to happen, I'm glad it was against a Chinese player.
Indeed. Ronaldo attempted several times to dribble past him on the two sides of the pitch. But,
as he would.
But they didn't work out.
Yeah.
Sun Jihai is arguably the best Chinese player that has played in the English Premier League.
For sure.
But hopefully someone will take this title to replace him in the future.
Yeah. For you, from your side, any Asian players in the league currently or in the past that really impressed you?
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on what Yang Guang said about Sun Jihai, I don't think there's any argument about that. He is the most successful Chinese player who's played in overseas leagues. The absolute number one brother or first brother.
Right.
Yeah, a term that we use to describe someone who's the top of the game.
Yeah. I love that term. It's like a term of endearment. It's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. I guess it's something that the fans would put onto him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Sun Jihai played in English teams, in English leagues, including the Championship and the Premier League. I think he was with City from 2002 and 2008.
And just quickly, there again, we see an example of how having multiple leagues can benefit a player's career, where you don't necessarily have to play in the top league, but you can still have a professional, really successul career, which is hopefully something that this cooperation deal between China and the English Premier League can lead to in this country.
Yeah, if Sun arrived at the Premier League, he probably wouldn't have been so successful in England. He played altogether 150 games in the Premier League, and that's a record that's still standing. I don't think anyone will break that record anytime soon.
Yeah.
And also, he was part of China's national team that played in the World Cup in 2002, which was the only time that China qualified for the final stages of this tournament. So yeah, I think the time that he played was the golden age of Chinese football, because around the same time there were also several other Chinese players, like Yang Guang said, Fan Zhiyi. They played in England and Germany.
Right.
And
So it was a
right
special
now.
time for Chinese talent from the football side of things, right?
Yes, I think it was back in the days when the gap between Chinese football and the world's leading teams is not so big.
That was the golden era for Chinese football.
Yeah.
Now it's gone, but I'm sure it will come back.
We hope so. We hope so.
It's definitely coming back, but I really miss those days.
Yeah, for sure. From my side, as a Manchester United fan, Park Ji-sung, I suppose, was probably the most successful Asian player we've ever had. I was never a huge fan of his, just as a football viewer, because I didn't think he was the most talented with the ball. But so many Manchester United legends have said how important he was to Manchester United's success in those later 2000 years. Because at that time, Ferguson really liked players that did a job for him. And I think that he was very good at following Sir Alex Ferguson's orders. And in big games like against the Liverpools, the Arsenals, he was very good at following those orders. For example, like marking a particular player, staying in a particular tactical position to allow others to, play their expansive game, the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Ryan Giggs, Wayne Rooney. So he was definitely a critical part in probably one of Manchester United's most successful periods. So I think that's also a huge positive in terms of Asian football's influence in the Premier League.
He seemed never tired on the pitch.
Yeah, he had an unbelievable motor, and he was, similar to N'Golo Kante, just running and running. And he's actually the type of player that I think the English Premier League and even just European leagues in general is lacking at this point in time. Someone that will just chase absolutely any ball and do everything that he can for the team. And he was definitely one of those players.
So he's not very creative, very innovative. But if you tell him what to do,
funny enough, he did okay. Like in a couple of big games, he scored some important goals. I just didn't think he was the most talented footballer, but he was an important part of particularly big games. He definitely had big match temperament.
A key squad player.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A key squad player, like the likes of Darren Fletcher, John O'Shea, not necessarily guaranteed starters, but very important to have in the squad. And also just talking about, the Asian continent and the football talent coming from here. And we've spoken about the Chinese golden age of football. Yang Guang, we hope to see that golden age return at some point. But to have that happen, we need to see some talents emerging. So are there any Chinese footballers that we need to keep our eyes on at this point in time that could go on to become international superstars?
Yeah, when Team China is at its very low point, I think everyone is looking for the silver lining.
Yes.
And while China suffered a 1-0 loss to Syria and earlier a 1-1 draw against Malaysia,
which the fans were thrilled about, right?
Which drew heavy criticism from Chinese fans.
It was crazy, yeah.
The Chinese U15 team actually beat Japan to win the East Asian Youth Championship. That is a
massive accomplishment. Yeah. Also considering how well Japan are doing on all levels at this point in time in football.
Yeah, and also last year, the Chinese U20 national team also had some shining performances. The captain Ifeadin and other helpers of the team really catching fans' attentions. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before Chinese player will take spotlights in Asia and even land in top-tier European leagues like the Premier League.
I think it's always a good sign to see the national teams on the youth level doing really well. And I think that China's definitely putting structures into place to bring that talent through and into the professional system. So that's definitely very exciting to see. For you, from your side, any emerging talents we need to keep our eyes on?
Yeah, for me, 20-year-old Wang Bowen is one to watch. He's already on China's junior national team. And on the club level, he's been with Bremen in Germany. Actually, he's earned the trust of the club and recently extended his contract in Germany for a year.
Fantastic.
And he's already earned the call-up at China's under-22 national team. He is a versatile striker. He's quite creative. He's fast, and also he's got consistency. So I think this player, Wang Bowen, could be one of the future stars that could lead the rejuvenation of China's football.
So it's definitely a tricky stage for Chinese national football at this point in time, but it does sound like there is some talent coming through, and we have to hope that that golden age of Chinese football does return again. But that is all we have time for on this week's episode of Sideline Story. Thank you so much for joining us, and of course we will be back next week with our latest topic, and we'll see you then.
This is CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.